Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Photography Pubcast. This is season 3, episode 4. Hope you guys are well. There's 5 of us this week. First of all, I think we need to address where Paul is. He hasn't been here for the last, for this whole season. And basically that's because life just got in the way. And so he won't be with us unless he can find free time, basically. So it's totally amicable. We really miss you, Paul, and we hope you can make it back at some point and record with us. But as it stands, it's just the 5 of us for the time being. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, it's a shame actually, because I do like his company and he had good input. But, you know, we understand, mate, you know, things do get in the way sometimes and you have to put other things before us 5, that's for sure.
Yeah. It's only because we've got nothing better to do. You see, that's what it is.
Exactly.
We don't have
Paul's got a life.
Yeah, we don't really have a life. So, yeah. Just going through some admin here, really. The photography competition, thank you so much for everyone who's entered so far. How many we got, Dave? About 20 odd, is it, so far?
Yeah, 21 so far.
Yeah, 21 so far. We're going to keep it open until the end of November. So the closing date will be the last day of November, and then we'll have a look on the first podcast of December, and we'll have a little judge and give out our prizes.
You may have noted that I've taken an executive decision and set them all up anonymously, so that when we do our Camera Club judge impressions, we don't know who sent them in. Now, obviously, I know who sent them in, but I probably won't say much. So it'd be interesting to see how crappy Camera Club judges you lot are.
Very, very crappy, I'd imagine. But yeah, I did notice that. I think that's a good thing though, because I think even if you're not doing it on purpose, there's still some maybe subconscious bias. You go, oh, I like him or I like her and whatever. So yeah, so there'll be none of that. And keep them coming in. You know, we want to get as many as we can, really. Just keep them coming in. We need to give Dave some work. So, you know. Right, what else we got? Okay, so comments. There were a few comments that I just wanted to pick up from last week. I'm going to start with Ginger Captures, which is Darren, isn't it? Darren Morehouse. He said, did Daz lock himself in the loo last week? What happened to you last week, mate?
I was a little bit poorly last week. I'm still a little bit poorly, actually. But, you know, I'm soldiering on. I'm here now. So, and I must admit, I enjoyed the show last week. Very good. And I was very impressed with the images that you guys shared. All of you. Absolutely all of you. Yeah, some great images there.
There were some excellent images. So he didn't lock himself in the loo. He was genuinely not very well.
Yeah.
We had obviously if you watched it, Daz, or you listened to it, you heard the conversation about e-bikes. Paul Hammett, he said his e-bike is one of the most important bits of photography kit he owns. It turns a 2-hour uphill hike into 45 minutes of almost effortless pedalling. So
they're amazing e-bikes.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. Well, a friend of mine lives in the French Alps, and he was he still is a really keen cyclist. But the last time I saw Ollie, he was probably like late 60s. He's probably early 70s now, and he literally lives on a mountain, and it's about 7 kilometres down from the mountain onto the main road before you get to the closest village. So all of his cycling, he had to obviously go down, but then it was coming back up that mountain again. And he said without an e-bike, he wouldn't be able to cycle anymore because he just couldn't kind of get up that hill. And when I was over there once, he said, "Oh, try it," and it was incredible, so good. You know, I mean, it doesn't pedal for you, but it just gives you that little bit of oomph when you're kind of going up a hill. So I think they're great things.
Well, any e-bike manufacturers out there, if you want to give us 5 bikes for the Lake District, we're not going to turn it down.
I got some DMs last week asking me about the one I was on about.
Oh, did you?
And and I read a review. I forgot to mention last week. I read a review of it, and somebody said it's like being on a tandem with Bradley Wiggins. I thought that was a really good description, because it is.
Yeah.
There you go. A joke comment we thought was going to be funny has turned into a serious thing. So
yeah, well, I think a lot of people was frowning on when they first come out. Said, "Oh, well, you know, they're not real cyclists. If you need a," but it lets people cycle who can't do certain things anymore. You know, if you live in a place where there's lots of hills, you know, and you know you're not. You don't even have to be of a certain age where you think, "Oh, I can't do that because of my age." It could be because you're just not fit enough to do it.
Well, this is it. Imagine not being able to go out with your meat and two veg on display in Lycra. It would be awful.
Oh, Dave, you spoilt it. Now I've got that. Why did you say that so early into the pubcast? Oh,
I'd look like Mr. Blobby, you know. Like, I should get a pink one with yellow spots on, and a horn would go blub, 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 blub. There you go.
You weren't him in disguise. That was pretty good.
I know. Well, I don't want to say anything. It wasn't even in disguise, Jamie.
I think the 5 of us going around the Lake District on bikes would be brilliant. It would be like Last of a Summer Wine. It'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
well, for us four, perhaps not for you. Yeah.
There's still time to get them in. There's still time to get them in if you want it. If anyone wants to send us one, we're not going for a little while yet, a few days. So you know, get in contact, e-bike manufacturers.
I'm so looking forward to this trip. I really am.
Well, I've got something to talk about with that coming up in a bit. Anyway, so comments. Another comment here is from Barry Partington. And we were talking about meeting people, weren't we? Meeting subscribers. And he said, Gary and Mackie D's with a mouthful of Big Mac. Hey, are you Gary Norman? What would your response be? Well, firstly, I'll have another Big Mac. Thanks. But I did someone actually came up to me at McDonald's once. It was someone I'd done a podcast for 1/160th of a second photography podcast, and the guy recognised me and came up to me, and I had no idea who he was, even I'd spoken to him. So that was a bit awkward. But it'd be another Big Mac. We've also had stuff on back button focus from Robin Lee and Riding the Edge, and actually Riding the Edge made a very good point. He said, the reason I half press for me is it's the most efficient way to do action photography, because basically what he's saying, I'm going to paraphrase, what he's saying is he uses back button, he uses the half press, and with his thumb he controls the focus point with the stick, and he wouldn't be able to do that if he was using his thumb for the back button focus. So actually I was like, okay, fair play, that's quite a good comment. And I think Robin Lee said that a lot of the newer cameras, there's, even if you're fully depressing, they're still using the focusing, this AI servo focus. So we stand corrected. And there was also another comment that someone put with a link in it to someone talking about Sony focusing, but that's gone. So whoever you are, I'm sorry. I did watch some of it, but the comment's gone. So I don't know if you deleted it or I don't know.
Is that Mark Gaylor? Is it Mark Gaylor?
Yes, Mark Gaylor. Yes, it was his video.
He does a load of stuff on Sony. Yeah.
Have you guys noticed on YouTube that you're getting comments that are not there? Or is it just me?
Not recently.
Because I've had several where it said I've had 2 or 3 comments, and when I look, there's only 1. So I don't know whether that's...
I've had that in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
where it says, I don't know, like 5 comments, and you look and there's 4 or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I don't know whether they're auto-deleting the dodgy comments, because I seem to stop getting those now. So it might be that they're deleting those, but they're not taking them off the count on the database or something. So I don't know.
They've all moved to Facebook instead.
Yeah. Now we're going to come to Darren's photos in a minute, because we were talking about that last week, weren't we? We shared our photos, but before that, we're talking about the Lake District, weren't we? About you saying you're looking forward that we're all going to the Lake District. I'm really looking forward to it, and I know the plan is to go up to Lingmore Fell, isn't it? At one point. So I've been researching Lingmore Fell, right, and getting up to Lingmore Fell, and it seems like there's quite a nice circular route. That's about 4 miles, and it looks like it takes in a lot of really interesting shots. And Darren Morehouse, Ginger Captors, he's got a really good video on it, and there's a few others. But the point of it is whichever way you go about it, if you do a circular route, you've got to go past this one particular point, which is called the Squeeze, or Fat Man's Agony, as it's also known as, which is a rock that's got a gap in it, which is particularly small. And my question to any of you guys out there, or you guys actually, has anyone been through it, and am I going to get stuck?
I hope so. I really, really hope so.
It's worrying me.
Can you not go over the top? Can we not just give you a leg up and go over the top rather than go through the gap?
Well, it's a sheer drop. It's a sheer drop.
We could just take a load of butter and just kind of push you through, just grease you up.
I'm not going to lie, Daz, I probably would have eaten the butter on the way up. So
I tell you what, Lingmore Fell, honestly, that was one of the hardest hikes, to be honest with you, I've ever done.
What?
Not that I went out in the morning and I did 3 Wainwrights in the morning, and then I came back, had a sandwich, drove to Bleetarn, and then I went up Side Pike, because looking at the map I thought I could get from Side Pike kind of over to Lingmore Fell.
Yeah, this is it.
And the pathway was just non-existent. So after going all the way to the top of Side Pike, I virtually had to come all the way back down to the road to go back up again. It was lashing down a rain and I was absolutely exhausted. I really was. And at the top of Side Pike, there was a fantastic wild camping spot. And all the way up Lingmore Fell, I just kept thinking, why didn't I was drenched, literally kind of like, you know, to the bone, thinking, why didn't I just kind of throw my tent up there in the dry? But I did make it, and I threw the tent up at the top. So, but yeah, that was tough. But it wasn't because of the incline; it was because of the day that I'd had.
Okay, this walk that goes up by Side Pike is the one that's got this, because you could go the other way round, which is up Brown How,
yeah.
If you go around that way and then you come on to Lingmore Fell,
yeah,
then you could double back on yourself and go back over Brown How and on the way down.
In all fairness, that's where I went, Brown How.
Yeah, but I'm worried about this.
No, you'll be fine, mate.
This. Yeah, but what if I'm not? Because it's not called Fat Man's Agony for no reason, is it? It's obviously quite tight. So what I want to know is if any of you are rotund, have you been through Fat Man's Agony? And am I going to make it through? Is that?
Oh, it's a wonder you make it through the door. I'm joking. You know I love you, brother.
So that'll be a good day for me down at Bleetarn then. I'll just spend the whole day down there. Right, yeah. So okay, that's that out of the way. One thing before we get on to topics is, Daz, do you want to share your photos? We did some photos last week. And,
yeah, I will actually. Do you know? And all the photos that I've got in mind, they're all going to be, well, not they're all going to be, but everything I've been shooting recently is all. I've got to keep putting my hand like that because I keep blocking that light. It's all wildlife, and there wasn't really one photo that kind of stood out for me. There's lots of them that I really like, but they're all on about the same level. So, but there is one photo that I will share with you, because I was listening to you guys last week and it was more of a kind of a camera club vibe, and there's one photo that I'm not too sure about, and I would really like your honest opinion. I mean, I know you'll give me your honest opinion anyway, really. But anyway, I'll show you it and I'll see what you think about it. Yeah, I took that up at Haweswater, and it almost looks like a prop, but it really wasn't. I went up there purely to shoot wildlife. That was the first time I've ever been to the Lake District to shoot wildlife. And it was just so nice, you know, just kind of spending, I don't know, 3 or 4 days in Haweswater, and then I came back down to Coniston and I shot around kind of Rydal Water, and I just had so much fun. I mean, I know that bird is nothing kind of in particular, a little wren, but for me, I just enjoy shooting the wildlife, no matter what it is, really. It doesn't have to be something that's kind of quite exotic. I mean, it'd be nice if something kind of came along. You know, I've got a great shot of an osprey, but I think anyone that just enjoys whatever they're doing, then the subject matter doesn't really matter, to be honest with you. But
no, but as someone who does a bit of wildlife, I really appreciate that shot, because I know wrens are difficult to actually capture, because they move around they're quite shy. They move around a lot in the undergrowth, and then they're never really very still for very long. So to get one like that posing there is really excellent. So,
yeah, and to have it with food in the mouth as well.
Yeah.
I think it's a stunning image, Darren.
Thank you.
Really good.
Right. So the image that I wanted to show you, not that one. Actually, that was a nice photo. That's I'm taking over. That was a nice photo shot at Clave Nature Reserve. Right. So it's this photo here.
Okay.
Right. So, do you like that photo?
Yeah.
How could you not?
Definitely.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like it.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
I think it was just the way that the eyes or the eye is just coming through the wing.
Yeah, yeah.
And I looked at it and I just thought, I really like that. And then I just thought, well, I'm not too sure actually. But then, yeah. So anyway, yeah. Fill your boots, gents.
Yeah.
What
No,
didn't you
definitely.
like about it then? Why were you unsure about it?
No, I don't know. I suppose no. I don't know. I was kind of just sitting on the fence with it. That's
I
all.
tell you what it is, Daz. I'll tell you what it is. It's because it's not a classical pose for a bird, and that might be why you've looked at it and gone, I'm not sure about it. But I personally think the fact it isn't like, because if it was side on with its wings outstretched, it'd be just another bird photo. Whereas this one for me is excellent because it's a really interesting. It's got interesting angles in it. It's also a very good shot in its own right and well taken as well.
Yeah, technically it's spot on, isn't it? As you say, the angles. You got the beak, the feathers, the legs all pointing in exactly the same direction.
Yeah.
And it's then looking down. But yeah, I think it's technically spot on, Daz. And even because you've got those layers of the bokeh behind as well, I think, just makes it stand out. So I think it's brilliant.
I'll tell you what a camera club judge would say. Go on, Sam. Go on.
Yeah, I think it's stunning, Darren. I think as the others have said, with the line of a beak and the line of the feathers, and also because you've got that eye poking out between two feathers, it makes it so much more interesting than if it was like a standard bird in flight image. And because it's an action shot, and you can see that it's looking in the direction as well that those feathers are pointing in, and you've got this kind of triangle going on. I think it's a brilliant shot.
I'll tell you what a camera club judge would say. Hugh, if you're watching, you can back me up on this. I bet you they'd say, there's too much space at the bottom though. There's too much space. There's too much dead space at the bottom. That's what a camera club judge will say about that. But I think it's excellent. I don't know why you don't like it. I get it. It's not your traditional bird in flight shot, but I think it's really good, mate. Honestly.
So it's not that I don't like it. I think because I don't actually shoot. Let me unshare that screen.
Before you unshare it, Daz, what is it?
It is a redshank.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think. Stop sharing. Yeah, I think because I don't actually shoot a lot of birds in flight. I mean, I do. If something's flying by, it's kind of instinct. It's like a cat when it sees a mouse. Automatically go for it, no matter what it is. But yeah, I'm not a big lover of kind of bird in flight shots. So I much prefer it when they're perched. So yeah, I don't know. It was just because it was a bird in flight shot, I suppose, that I was kind of just on the fence with it. And I suppose because it is
in this case, maybe.
or not, yeah. No, I don't know. Anyway, but I'm glad. I'm thankful for your opinion.
Yeah,
Presumably they're more of a challenge to get, and certainly to get pin sharp as well if you've got a bird in flight rather than the bird perched. So technically, it's a more challenging shot to get right in the first place, and to have nailed everything the way you did. Surely that's more of an achievement in a way than just taking a bird on a perch. Not belittling how hard it is to get a bird on a perch right, but.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of, I won't lie, there's a little bit of kind of spray and pray kind of associated with stuff like that, and sometimes sometimes you nail it, sometimes you don't, but yeah.
All right, okay. Let's move on then to the first topic of tonight, I think, and this is one that we were literally about to head into at the end of last week, and then we went, that's way too big a topic to just discuss at the very end. So. This one is from Jim Owens. Oh, and by the way, please keep your questions coming in. They're very much appreciated. This one's from Jim Owens, and he said, if no one would ever see your photos, would you still take them? And then in brackets, he's put, assuming the answer is yes, why is social media so important?
First of all, definitely I would still take photos if there wasn't any social media and no one was paying any attention to them. And I think it's because, to be honest, I think we all enjoy getting likes, and when we put things up on social media, it gives us that little dopamine hit if you get lots of likes. But that is never really the reason I take photographs, and it never has been. It's kind of, I guess, a sort of byproduct of, if I take photos, I like to share them, but the reason for me taking them has never been about putting them on social media. It's a creative outlet for me, and I guess you guys are probably the same, so I would still go and do it even if no one else was paying any attention to it whatsoever, because I enjoy the process of it. And also, I am now starting to get some of my photos printed a lot more often. I've got a photo that's being printed and framed at the moment at a local framers down here, and I love having those images up on the wall. So even if no one else is going to have a look at them, it's still something that I enjoy and am passionate about. So of course I'd still keep doing it.
I agree with Sam. I mean, there's so many of those wildlife photos that I haven't posted anywhere, and they are photos that I genuinely like. Not that I think, oh, that's not worth sharing. It's that I think the last time I put something on my Facebook page, the photography page, I put about 5 or 6 on in one go, and I think the post was, I just realised I haven't shared for a while, and I just kind of dumped kind of 4 or 5 photos in there at the same time. So yeah, for me, I think it's not just the photos though, is it? For most of us just enjoy being outside. Regardless of the photo, if you've been out for a morning and you've witnessed a nice sunrise, or, even if you've just been out there hearing bird song, or you've climbed a fell or something like that, the photography is a byproduct of having a fantastic morning out in nature.
So the question is then, let's throw the question or turn it around a little bit. If that's the case, why do we share them? What do we get? What do you get out of sharing your photo on social media? So forget about what you get out of taking it. Take that bit out of it. What do you get out of sharing it? Why do we do it?
Well, I suppose it goes back to back in the day when there was no social media. You go away on holiday, you send someone a postcard, wouldn't you? Oh, this is where I've been. This is what I'm up to. It's the same thing, really. It just evolved.
Do you think that? Do you think that's what it is?
It is nice, I think, to be able to put things out and get a little bit of feedback on it. And in this sort of day and age, it is a media that allows us to do that. I mean, for me, actually, honestly, if I take a great image, I don't tend to think, oh, that's great, I can go and put it on Twitter. Sometimes it might be a few weeks afterwards when, as an afterthought, I think, I should probably share that on Instagram now, because I don't, that's not the reason for me taking it. But the byproduct of social media for me is that you get feedback from people who you respect sometimes, and occasionally that happened to me this week actually. A very well-known photographer reshared one of my images, and it meant a lot to me to have that sort of feedback. And then just things like, doing YouTube, the best thing about YouTube is, things like meeting up with you guys and making friendships from it. So there is a social aspect of it. But it's not, for me personally, about counting likes or thumbs up, because actually whilst it's nice to get a little bit of satisfaction from that, like the most valuable things are comments from people that and also being able to sort of get feedback from people whose opinions you respect. And for me, that's what it's really about. So that's why I still do it.
Yeah.
Do you judge? I mean, let's be honest now, because we could. I'm really not saying that that's not the reason, Sam. But we could all say, I don't take any account of likes. I don't take any account of comments. I don't take any account of views. But I know personally, and I've been guilty of this in the past, and I still do it from time to time. I think consciously or subconsciously, I will judge my photo and the quality and standard of it on the amount of likes it's got, the same way I'll judge my video on the amount of views it's got. And I'll look and go, oh, that one didn't do so well. Maybe it's not a particularly good image.
See,
Does anyone else feel like that? I mean,
I don't. Sorry to jump in again, but okay. I don't feel that, and it's not that I don't. It's not that I sort of don't have any sort of regard for likes at all. Of course, it's nice when you get lots of likes, and I'm never going to say it isn't. But at the same time, I'm kind of the opinion that because generally I share my photos always at the same time, and sometimes if I get lots of likes on one photo, I tend to think, oh, it probably hit something in an algorithm somewhere that made it do well, as opposed to it being a better photo than one which had hardly any likes. So actually, I tend not to use those measures as a measure of quality. In the same way as we were talking about my YouTube video last week, which is rubbish, that's had 100,000 views. It's probably one of my worst YouTube videos, and I know it is. So if I was to judge that and think, well, that's clearly my best YouTube video because it's had loads of views, it's not. It's just that it happens to hit the algorithm in a certain way and ranked quite high for a search term. And same with things like Twitter. I'm only just starting to use Twitter, but I had an image which had I shared 2 images last week. One had a few likes and the other one had a huge number of likes, and it was because that second image got shared by certain people, and I actually think I prefer the first one. It's so likes are kind of, it's nice when they happen, but I don't read into them at all in any way. But that's just me.
Yeah, I think the only way that you get, say, more likes on something like Twitter is if somebody shares your photo. I've had a couple of photos that have kind of, done very well in terms of likes on Twitter, and that's just because people have shared it. That's it, really, and it's just gone out to a wider audience.
I think when you look at the psychology of it, though, which I guess is at the heart of the question, everybody and his dog before smartphones had a camera. And they had it on automatic, and they took it on holiday, and then they sent the film off to Boots or whatever, or TruePrint, and got their pictures back. But some of us wanted to be more creative. We wanted, as Sam said earlier, to create something that's more artistic, that has just value to us. And so we would move off full auto if the camera did, or if it didn't, we'd buy a camera that would. And so back in the day, as photographers in analog times, progressed on that basis, but we had no outlet for our images unless we were sufficiently expertise or stupid amounts of money where we could hire our own gallery and hold an exhibition. But the fact remains that even back in those days, photographers held exhibitions and people came along to those exhibitions, and the feedback was more personal. It was more on a human level, person to person within the gallery. And I think that social media has given us more egalitarian opportunities where we can run our little exhibition, which we can rotate the content and add new content as it becomes available. But the fact remains, the psychology of it is, as a photographer, I think it would be disingenuous to claim that we don't feel good when our creativity is validated. And let's be fair, feel a bit miffed when our creativity is dissed, when somebody says, oh, there's no excuse for blowing the highlights. But I think that it's just important to kind of stay level-headed about it and never lose sight of the fact that the most important audience for your images is yourself. And when you look back over it, and as Darren pointed out perfectly eloquently, every time I look at one of my images, it reminds me of the moment it was captured. And it doesn't matter if I had 3 or 4 hours enjoyable processing time on a rainy afternoon with a whiskey and nothing better to do. What I remember is capturing the pixels in the first place. And so I might be slightly more discerning these days. I like to think I am, because if you don't improve, It's not ideal. But I think that people should really enjoy their images for themselves, but also not be shy about sharing them, and not be shy about saying, oh, well, isn't it nice when lots of people like them? You know, we've all got egos, and if social media gives us an opportunity to stoke them, then stoke away, I say.
I think this is exactly, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. I think the thing is social media is essentially designed to give you that dopamine hit of people liking whatever it is that you're doing. So I think people out there on Facebook, well, it's not designed for that, it's designed to sell you stuff, but people out there on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whoever, they want you to crave those likes. They want you to want that more exposure. They want you to keep putting stuff on there. Otherwise, they wouldn't have a like system on there, because if there were no like system on there, you wouldn't be worrying about it. But the fact is, and you're right, firstly and foremost, it should be about you. But I think there's the important message for me is there's a balance to strike. So I want people to see my work. I want people to like my work. I want to get as many likes as possible. I love it. I love that, you know, interaction. I love the fact that people are looking at my stuff and liking it. But it's really easy to tip over into one of two things. It's easy to become someone who is an absolute slave to the likes, and they become more and more and more, I'm not going to say desperate, but they become more outlandish, or they'll do more to get more likes. They'll do stuff that goes beyond the reasonable. So, you know, you can become that person. You're so desperate to be popular because it's all encompassing. It can be, I think, if you're in the middle of that as well, if you're in the middle of that social media thing, it can become all encompassing. I must get likes, I must have validation, I must have people watching my stuff. I've got to put out as much content, no matter what that content is, as possible. And the other thing I was going to say is that you need to, if you're not that person, you need to have a balance. You need to go, there's got to be a point where you go, okay, that one didn't do so well, that one didn't get so many likes, it doesn't matter, it's okay.
But that's a good point. There's an awful lot of angst out there by people who perhaps slightly less balanced, and I just think, don't be daft, but I just think it's all a bit juvenile. I think if people put an image out and they only get 3 likes on it when they normally get 33 likes, and then their week is ruined and woe is me, and they start posting, oh, I'm going to give it all up, and then they don't really, because the next present company excluded. But I do think that there is, there are some people out there for whom it's a real burden.
Yeah.
And I think it's a pity that they feel that way, because frankly there's no need to, and if they can't shake it off and grow up a bit, maybe they just shouldn't be on social media to start with, because it's not a good measure of your where's he off to now?
I think he was taking your point on the chin.
I was just leaving. No, I mean, yeah, you're spot on, mate. And it's, I often, I think, I've been guilty of going, I'm not doing this anymore. But for me, it's never been, I'm not getting as many views or likes as I've had in the past, I'm not doing it anymore. There's always been, it's almost like I sometimes want to stop because I see that, and that makes me feel like, I don't want to be part of that.
Yeah, I mean, your motives for your slight hiatuses every now and then tend to be more sophisticated than a simple, everybody hates me.
I'm a very sophisticated man, Dave.
There are them burgers in a tin.
I think one of the, going back to the question, because it's quite as Dave put much more eloquently than I could ever put, quite sort of, the question is loaded in the sense that social media is there as an outlet for us to use because we can, because it's available. It wasn't available in the past, it is now, so it is an outlet that we use. But I think what social media also gives individuals that, in Dave's analogy of an exhibition, doesn't give, is it gives individuals the ability to amplify their personality as well as just share a picture or just dump something onto a Flickr site, because you can tell the story, you can, and I guess the more that you share, and the more that you share the personality that you are, it then paints a more of a picture about you as an individual. And to pick up your point about people that overshare, I think sometimes it can become detrimental to them, because that sort of oversharing and that just throwing everything out into social media all the time, it can sort of smell of desperation at certain, desperate to be liked, desperate to be loved, desperate to get the likes. And I think that sometimes can go against people. And I think that's why picking and choosing what you share, when you share it, the audience you share it to, is probably a wiser thing to do, rather than just by every single shot that you take, just whack it on social media and then count the number of likes and think, oh, that one's done okay, that must be a great shot. So yeah, I think it is a tool that we can use, but it has to be used wisely, I think, by the individual. Otherwise you can harm yourself by abusing it, really.
I think self-harm via social media, and I'm not joking, is a real thing. Because I think, that we all know people, we all know individuals who almost bear their entire soul on social media, all the worst bits. And it's just, please don't do it. Be yourself, don't be someone else. But, I've fallen out with lots of people in the past.
No shit.
Yeah, well, no, I have, but I look at quite a few people, and I don't feel any, I don't think there's anyone I've fallen out with who I feel animosity towards. I just, and in a lot of instances, I feel kind of like sorry, and it's like I wish they had someone reining them in to say, don't do that, don't just like give yourself a day before you post that, give yourself 5 minutes before you put that video out, or you put that that status out on Facebook, or you put that out. Just back off. And you get these cooling off periods on gambling sites. I think you should have cooling off periods on social media, where they say social media's got too much for me, and you should have the facility to go block me for 24 hours before I do something stupid on it.
So you think post responsibly should be the tagline?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I just...
But there's also the opposite argument to that. You get all these people that post stuff that make out their life is all unicorns and rainbows, when clearly it isn't.
Oh, I can't. Do you know what? The worst one, I've probably said this before on Facebook, is when you get people... There's two. One, you get people going, I'm having a great time, I'm having the best time. Well, off Facebook and have your good time. If you're having that good a time, you haven't got time to post it on Facebook. Having the best party ever, well, clearly you're not, because you're sitting on your phone. If you're having the best party ever, you'd be having the best party ever. And the other one is when you get a couple and they talk to each other via Facebook and they're sitting next to each other on the couch. Love you too, love you too. Yeah. Just say it to each other. Turn like you don't need to go, love you. Oh, I got a message. Oh, love you too. You're next to each other. Just say it. What's the matter with you people? So I think the message is, don't drink and Facebook. All right, so we've got another question here, and this one's from you, Darren. And it's micro 4/3 versus full frame, I guess, versus APS-C versus medium format. So what was your point? What are you trying to get at here, mate?
Well, I was always kind of under the impression that the bigger the sensor, the more light you can let in. Okay. Now, there's more than a few wildlife photographers that I follow that was shooting Sony and Nikon that have all gone down now to the OM1 and absolutely love it. Absolutely fantastic cameras. Now, I was always thinking, well, is a micro 4/3 going to be good enough for wildlife? I can understand it with landscape, because obviously you can increase the shutter speed. So, but now these guys are kind of moving over to it. That's just kind of blown my kind of, I wouldn't say theory, just because it was nothing that I really kind of ever gave it that much thought. It was just something that was in the back of my mind, and it just come to the forefront after watching these guys kind of, ditching their kind of really expensive pieces of kit and moving over to the OM1 system. So it was more of a question for you guys, really, to answer for me.
Well, I think we should ask Dave, because Dave, you've got an OM1, so...
I have, yes. Well, I suppose, I mean, the short answer is a bit glib, but it does hold water. If I can get decent shots of wildlife, it must be an amazing camera, because I've got no clue what I'm doing when it comes to shooting wildlife. And since I got that camera, I've got one or two pretty decent bird shots that I wouldn't have got otherwise. And Gary's sat in my conservatory and used it, and those raw files I sent you, one or two were quite usable, I'm guessing.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
But it's electronics as much as anything that flatter the average photographer. And as I say, when it comes to wildlife, I'm extremely average. But I think that it's interesting. There was a video that came out just this afternoon by Jimmy Cheng, who's a Micro Four Thirds shooter. He's an Olympus ambassador. And he had something to say about the way that high traffic review sites and online vloggers talk about equipment as if, oh, well, when you grow up, you'll graduate up to full frame. And if you're I don't know, for argument's sake, an Adam Gibbs or whoever, you know, a Tom Heaton, and then you'll get a medium format, or it's kind of perceived as some kind of rite of passage to work your way through sensor formats until you get to the biggest format that your budget will allow. And I'm totally with Jimmy on his observations that it's purely about a piece of equipment that allows you to do what you want to do. And my purchasing decision was long before the OM1 came out. It was all about the lenses being small and light, so that I could haul them up a mountain with my camera gear, because I'm an old git and I'm not as sprightly as I used to be. And that was it. It had nothing to do with it was a toss of a coin between Panasonic and Olympus, and Fuji was in the mix as well, APS-C, but there was none to choose between them, really. I could literally have tossed a coin, whatever it came up with, that's what I was getting. So, yeah, for me, it's just about, does the kit that you have deliver what you want it to deliver?
No, I get that, Dave, because you've made that decision for exactly them reasons that you said. You know, you want to enjoy the hike without carrying loads of weight. So that suits you. But my kind of question is, technically, let's say kind of for low light, would the 4/3 be as good as a full frame or a medium format?
Well, I think that there's a different issue here, and I don't think it's necessarily anything to do with the sensor size. I think people are jumping over to Olympus because of the technology that's in the camera. So, like I said to you at the photography show, that pre-shooting ability the Olympus has, and the fact that it tracks objects and birds better than anything I've ever seen, overrides the need for a medium, overrides the need for an APS-C or a full frame sensor. So you're going to get more chance, way more chance of getting way better images with that technology than you would if you didn't have that technology but you had a full frame sensor. And I think that's why people are going over to Olympus, because I mean, I had one of the original Lumix. I think it was the G2, which was a Micro Four Thirds camera, and that's a world away from where we're at now. I think Micro Four Thirds cameras are on a par in terms of almost everything with full frame cameras, with the Sonys, with the Nikons. But the fact that it can do those things on top, it can pre-shoot those images. So you can get I was round Dave's, there's birds on the perch, and I'm half pressed the shutter down and the bird's flown off. I've pressed the shutter, I've missed it, but it's already taken the shots because it's pre-shot them. So you're getting those images you just can't get. Your reactions aren't fast enough. Sorry,
perhaps I'm not explaining what I'm saying. I understand what Dave said entirely, and Gal, I understand what you're saying about the technology. But why then, forgetting forget how light they are or the technology. Why isn't every camera just the same sensor size?
Well, probably because in terms of those sensors, they are full frame sensors are probably will let in more light and will work better in the sort of darker conditions. They will do. I think there's no doubt in that. There's no arguing with that.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So that's where I've been thinking. Naturally, a full frame would probably be better for wildlife because you have to use a faster shutter speed. So you've probably got more chance of letting in that little bit of extra light. But as I say, there's so many fantastic wildlife photographers now dumping their full frames and going over to the OM1.
Yeah, because they're looking at that technology and the focusing ability that even the best full frame cameras can't compete with at the moment.
Yeah, plus a 600mm equivalent lens is a fraction of the size and weight. I mean, the sort of lenses that I use for landscapes, there's a weight saving, there's a size saving, but it's modest. But when you get up to big, chunky wildlife lenses, that weight and size saving is colossal. I mean, they're less than half the size and weight.
And cheaper, Dave.
Yeah, but I think that it's also fair to say that, and Gary made the point quite well, with the sort of GH2 back in the day, Micro Four Thirds wasn't well evolved, and it lagged behind, certainly in terms of image quality, for a long time. But I think that at the point where I invested in it, where I bought an EM1 Mark II, by then the issues around low light noise and other things like that were the Achilles heel of Micro Four Thirds were largely under control. And whilst if you're not super careful or perhaps slightly less experienced as a photographer, your images won't be as high a quality. Full frame is certainly more forgiving. APS-C is more forgiving. You can pull shadows up much more easily. But just that little bit of care when you're firing the shutter off can mitigate that. And I've never once had an image that I thought, oh God, if only I'd shot this on full frame. Never once. I've had images where I thought, oh God, if only I'd focused properly. But, that would still have been a problem on whatever.
We've all been there, mate.
Exactly.
It's all about having the right tool for the right job, as Dave was saying, and I know wildlife photographers who, going back to your sort of query about what's the difference really between a full frame and an APS-C. I knew wildlife photographers who their dual kit was they'd have a 5D3 and a 7D2 Canon, so they'd have a full frame and the APS-C, and if it was bright enough, they'd always choose the 7D because you got the extra crop factor on it, and you'd get extra reach effectively in your focal range. Someone's going to pull that comment apart, I'm sure, in the comments. But that's generally what. But if they were doing lower light photography, then they'd switch to the 5D. But I know, I've had conversations with someone who is. She's an Olympus ambassador, and she's a wildlife photographer, and she used to shoot Canon. And she moved over to Olympus, and she said it's so much better because it's so much lighter. You save all that weight in the lens. Whereas she used to carry around a 500mm Canon lens, which they weigh a ton, those things. And now, she can just take something which fits, almost in their pocket, effectively. It's so much lighter and more convenient.
I think there's two...
And the quality is there as well.
There's two other things that's... Certainly. But I think there's two other things that we haven't touched on. The first one is, practically speaking, that, most photographers, when they get to the point where they're looking at will they migrate to a different system, have the inertia of the fact they've already invested in a system and therefore have a whole bunch of equipment. So, we'll replace a body far more easily if we're just swapping it and we're using the same set of lenses. So there's that. So people that are shooting full frame go, well, I'll stick with that because I've already got a range of lenses to fit it, and that totally makes sense. And finally, the other thing is just that kind of completely intangible thing, which is just I just like the system. You know, I'm used to the menus. I'm used to the body. I like the ergonomics. I like where the buttons are. That, you know, and that's just, you know, when you buy a Ford, you buy a Vauxhall, you know, it just gets you from A to B. It's just a workhorse. And I think that when you get past sort of gear acquisition syndrome, I think we would all admit, because we're all much of a muchness in terms of our photography, that our equipment is just a set of tools, and it doesn't matter what badge is on the front of it. It just, you know, for whatever reason, doesn't matter. It just works for us. And I don't think, I mean, when we've all been out together, we've never looked at each other's kit. I've never looked at, you know, your stuff, Darren. I thought, oh my God, if only I could afford an A1. Not in a million years. I think you're a total nut job. I mean, I think you're right to choose what you want to choose.
Well, I'll tell you what, the A1 is so much more comfortable than the A7R3.
There you go.
But nothing compares to my DSLR, my Canon 5D Mark III.
Yeah.
If they could just put the A1 technology into a big I love the way that camera felt. It just felt like I don't know. It just when I went on to that hike I did last year, and like a 5-day kind of wild camping hike, and I didn't want to take the Mark III at the A7R3 at the time because it was just more weight to carry. So I took the A6400, which is my vlogging camera, and I took that to vlog and to take photos. It just didn't feel right in my hand. It just felt alien to me. Give me a great big DSLR body any day of the week. I just love it.
You're so right though. I've done the snapshots interviews, and the amount of people when I said which camera or which piece of equipment do you wish you still had, or do you miss because nostalgic brings you back. So many people like either said the 5D Mark III or the Canon 6D. It just feels. It just fitted in the palm of my hand that I didn't even know I was carrying it. Like, you know, the A7R3, because it was a lot smaller, I felt that I was gripping it tightly. Yeah. You know, I was always looking, I don't know, just to make sure I didn't drop it. Where, I don't know, the 5D, I didn't even realise I was carrying it after the time. It built like a tank as well.
It just fitted in my hand perfect.
I'm still using mine.
Chuck it in a river.
Yeah.
I wish.
It's right there.
One of my regrets, I think, is
5D. I've got a 5D2 as there as well, but yeah, because Hannah and I share cameras, so she's using the R5, I use a 5D3, and I love it.
I was going to say, I think one of the things that's affected the decisions is we're all getting older, and therefore you're less able to carry some of those heavy weights around. And you know, the 5D Mark IV that I had, exactly the same as what you're saying. Absolutely loved that camera, loved it to bits. But it's bloody heavy, and the lenses are heavy. And the buying decisions we make now are more based on the fact that we need to reduce the weight in our bags when we're walking around, and certainly if we're climbing, than actually the quality of the images that we're taking. It's more practical and ergonomics than it is quality of sensor. And that's just because everybody's getting older and less able to carry heavier weights around. So I think it's a practical decision, I think, rather than it's going to improve the quality of photography.
I still think there's a lot of people out there as well who will just dismiss Micro Four Thirds out of hand through maybe a bit of snobbery or maybe previous experiences before they've developed. Because I remember, you know, like I said with my G2, the EVF on it was shocking. You press a shutter button and it was like, and now I've taken the shot. It was so slow, but they've come on so much. I mean, you know, having 10 minutes with Dave's ON1, I loved it. For wildlife, I loved everything about it. If I could afford to, I would have that. I'd probably still have my Sony for landscape, but I'd love that camera for wildlife. That camera paired up with a 300mm lens, I would love it for wildlife. So, you know, and also I think Dave was saying about the whole, people say you progress. So you progress from the Micro Four Thirds onto an APS-C, then onto a full frame. That's a thing as well. You know, everyone will tell you that, you know, or I always felt that when I had the Canon 70D, I was like, I've got to get a 5D because I need full frame. I didn't know why I needed full frame. I just thought I needed full frame. So the first thing I did when I got a bit of money was I went out and I sold the 70D and bought a 5D Mark III. You know, which was a great camera, but I don't think it's.
I think there's a certain amount of marketing involved as well, to be fair, from the camera companies too. And that I remember on QI they were talking about Goldilocks pricing, where they'll always have the sort of economy, business class, and first class price brackets, and you know they do the same with sensors. That's not to say that a medium format is a waste of money, because it absolutely isn't. They are amazing, but I think there is when people have that sense of the natural progression is APS-C to full frame to medium format, I think that sort of comes from the marketing a little bit, and as you know, going back to Dave's original point of, you know, they're different tools which are specialized better for different things, and you know, wildlife photography might generally be more suited to smaller sensors, and a medium format's really it's a landscape photography specialist, so.
Well, perhaps when we're all sitting around the campfire in the Lake District, Dave, if you'd be so kind, perhaps I'll have a little look at your OM1. And
yeah, I'm doing rentals, no problem.
You are excellent, well done.
I did try and sell you an OM1 at the photography show. I did, to be fair.
I know, you did. Mate. You tried to sell me a lot of stuff at the photography show.
And me.
Not that burger, though.
I tried to sell you my OM1 this week too.
Oh, yours is the original, though, isn't it?
That's my one there. Yes. Yeah.
Do you still use that at all, Sam?
I keep meaning to. It's got film in it. Yeah. I don't use it as much as I should, but I do use it occasionally. Yeah.
That's a no, then, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's
I'm meaning to. That's a no.
You still got an envelope from Snappy Snaps. 2 for 1.
It was when I moved.
That's a free film.
When I moved to Oxford, I thought I could be a proper sort of hipster and go around Oxford and use it for street photography. It never happened. I've got a load of it.
Did you have a little fedora or something?
Yeah, I do somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to try and grow a beard.
No, they look rubbish, mate. Don't bother.
I can't grow one anyway. I can't.
Yeah. I'd love to. I mean, I've seen Daz has got a beard. I've seen Dave with a beard. I'd love to see you guys. You guys should grow beards for Christmas.
I can't. I honestly
can't.
can't.
Have big bushy beards.
No, well, I'll tell you what. I can't really grow a beard around here. It's very patchy here. And my son, who's currently in Australia, he's very much like I've got a hipster beard, but he's had like a full beard, like, you know, for years and years. And I'm so jealous of him because I'd love to have his beard. It's just thick everywhere. He could really shape it, and yeah, it really suits him actually, my son.
Can you get implants? Cheek implants? I don't know. Is that a thing? Or some spray on beard?
Spray on beard.
I was told in no uncertain terms to get rid of mine. Not just from the lovely Mrs. G, but from the elderly Mrs. G as well.
Oh dear.
Oh really? Oh
Yeah.
And the local police.
Mind you, the elderly Mrs. G wasn't best pleased that I cut my hair.
Should we just call her Mum, not the elderly Mrs. G? Look, your mum, she's lovely. Let's just refer to her as Mum, shall we?
Well, Mum told me that, oh bloody hell, you've cut your hair. I hate it.
Yeah, I've got to say, actually, one of the downsides of not picking Dave up is that we don't get to see your parents again on the way up, because that was a lovely
Tea,
experience
biscuits.
on the way to
It
school.
was.
Yeah.
Lovely cup of tea.
It's great.
Well, you could swing by and then we'll go up in convoy, because I'll be there that morning.
All right,
If you want to have a break that doesn't involve services, refreshments.
we'll do that. We'll arrange to meet up. We need to talk about that afterwards, by the way, Daz.
All right.
Yeah, we'll do that, definitely. Yes, we will do that. All right. So talking about the whole, being almost told you need to move on from micro four thirds to APS-C to full frame. This is probably something that ties in quite well, and this is a question from you, Darren, and it's again because you come up
Another
with most of the
one.
good ones. Yeah,
I come up with some questions last Sunday, didn't
yeah,
I?
I've got a spreadsheet in front of me, Daz. Yeah, and most of those aren't on it. I'll be honest.
Thank God for that.
You'd had a few beers, hadn't you?
I'd had a few beers round the pub, and it was a great afternoon round the pub, and I'm really not a big kind of drinker.
No.
And it was just one of them afternoons where the conversation around the pub was flowing, and And then everyone started kind of drifting away, and I was kind of had one more point to go, and I was pretty much, well, not on my own, but like all my kind of friends had left, and I was just kind of sitting there, and I thought, I'll just put a few questions on the topic group, and it just flowed. I was like,
I'll give you an example, everybody, of what he put in. One of them was, if you had an unlimited amount of time, how long do you think it would take you to drink the entire volume of Lake Coniston?
I forgot I asked that one. Yeah.
They were worse than that, but we're not putting those in. I'm not going to mention those, but yeah, the Lake Coniston. And what I think I've put one in here that we might do another time. What wild animal would you be? Which was an interesting one. Yeah, and then there were lots of uneditable ones.
You were obviously unwell last week. Were you on tablets as well? Were you drinking on tablets?
No, I wasn't. I think it's because I felt so rough last Friday, and Saturday was a little bit iffy. And then when I started to feel better on Sunday, and I just thought, right, okay, I've got to make up for lost time here. Because I'm not a big drinker. Yeah, I did get a little bit tipsy.
Yeah. All right. So let's have one that's not too bad from you, Daz. This is before that drinking session, and it's do we trust big influencers? Do we trust the big influencers? So, what do you mean by that, mate?
Well, I think it was because I actually text that to the group. Not last week, the week before, because we was all chatting away and something was said and that just popped into my mind. So you might have seen me kind of like looking down a little bit, and I put that in the group while I was recording. And I think because you was, that was it. It was because of Vero, and you was talking about Peter McKinnon.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of popped that one into the group. So, I mean, there's some people that I do trust. There's some people that perhaps I don't trust because they're doing it because they need to earn a living. But ultimately, I don't have like a massive... I follow the people that I like. And the people, like say, Peter McKinnon, I think he's great, but I haven't watched any of his videos for goodness knows kind of how long, really. And a lot of these
Darren,
people that...
Why not? What's up with you?
No, you can't take nothing away from the guy. I think he's superb, but it's just not for me anymore. Watching Peter's stuff, but I still like watching. It's so good. I can't think of their names. Chelsea and what's the guy's name?
Tony.
The old Silver Fox.
Northrop.
Tony and Chelsea. Yeah, sometimes I like watching their stuff occasionally. If I want to look at a spec of a camera. Now, do I trust them? I don't know, but I quite like the reviews that they do, and I always kind of make up my own mind. Who else is there? Who's the guy?
Camera Conspiracies, you're going to say.
Camera Conspiracies. I think he's fantastic. So there's a lot of people that I kind of do watch, but then ultimately, so I make up my own mind, really. But yeah, so that was just a question that I threw into there. I threw into the group while you were talking about Peter McKinnon.
Don't trust any of them. Don't trust any.
Yeah, but I knew you would say that anyway.
Yeah, but
you don't trust anybody.
How can you trust? I always watch and like Peter McKinnon's a great example, right? If you watch a video with Peter McKinnon, every single thing that he looks at is the best thing to come out until the next thing that comes out, and then that's the best thing to come out. So it's like it's. Companies go to him and they say, will you look at this for me? Will you look at this for me? And you can see almost like you could. I think he did one with. I think it was with the iPhone. Is either with the iPhone or a GoPro, and you could see in his video that he didn't rate it, but still he wouldn't say any negatives about it. It was still he still accentuated the positive on everything. So for me, no. I'll tell you who's the biggest influencer. The biggest influencer in our genre is Thomas Heaton. And he doesn't even have to advertise anything. He's still a really big influencer. I wonder how many people, and I'll be interesting to know in the comments, how many people had bought the tripod that Thomas Heaton had, and the ball head that Thomas Heaton had, and the camera that Thomas Heaton had, and the lens. I mean, I did, so I'm holding my hands up. But when you look at it, when I looked at all the stuff to buy when I had a bit of money, and I was like, I looked at, well, what's Thomas Heaton got?
I bought a lens on the strength of Thomas Heaton.
Yeah, that was the Zeiss, wasn't it?
That was the Zeiss 21 when
Yeah.
I was going to, I don't know where I was going, Iceland or Norway, something like that. And I wanted a nice wide-angled lens, or a good quality lens, I should say. And at the time, I'd really just started my journey into landscape photography. And I just thought, "God, this guy is so much better than me. And if he's happy with that lens, then it will be good enough for me. That's for sure."
I think it's interesting, though. I mean, we use the word influencer quite freely, but I think Tom probably would be horrified
He would.
to be classed as an influencer.
I was literally going to say accidental influencer in the
Yeah, and I think there are people out there who set themselves out to be influencers who've got no right to be, because they've got a crappy audience, and you know, they're doing it entirely because somebody sent them some free rubbish.
Is it the best gimbal you ever used?
I didn't say it was, did I? I asked the question, and if you watched it, to be fair, I did pick out two.
Did it have an arrow?
Oh no!
into
I got to say, right? I'm watching all you out there, right? Loads of people who watch us have started using arrows. I've noticed that. There's quite a few. There's quite a few who've got pointy now.
Wow!
So clearly, we're influencing them.
Exactly, we're the influencer channel. But no, I think the thing about it is, though, that there are people who, you know, on the passport application where it says occupation, they would actually say influencer, and I think there's a certain element of tragedy about that, and I think that the people that influence me tend to just be really good photographers, and the influence they have is me aspiring to be as good as them as a photographer. And whatever kit they use usually is utterly irrelevant. I don't think there's a single photographer that I follow for their photography where I hanker after the kit they use. What I'm much more interested in being influenced by is how they approach a scene, and how they work a composition, and how they process an image. And so yeah, that's really my take on it. Because the sort of people that have, you know, channels that are specifically gear oriented, I don't watch, and certainly wouldn't be influenced by.
Did you notice though how I composed that scene with my i01 Smart X gimbal?
How do you pronounce that again?
i01.
Did you check with them? Is that actually how it's pronounced?
Made it up. Could be anything. But that's gone back. By the way, I've sent that back. So
Was that good? Was it?
I'll tell you what. Talking of sorry, guys, did I cut you off?
No,
in mid-advert?
probably for the best.
Mid-advert.
What we need, I need some guidance on studio lighting. I'm just saying.
Anyone?
Anybody done any studio lighting
These are
reviews by any
absolutely
chance?
brilliant.
No.
This is absolutely.
Bloody hell!
Look at that! Look. Crikey!
I've got another one there too.
Side wall he's just pulled down.
Well, talking of lighting, there's a light bar above your monitor would be quite handy as well if anyone did.
Yeah, I got offered one of them.
I can't pull it over. It's connected. You mean one of these? Yeah.
Oh dear.
They are without doubt
Thank
the
you.
best studio lights I've ever used.
I tell you what, someone who commented the other week, Nick Page. I must admit, I am a big Nick Page fanboy. Out of anybody, you know, if I could go out with anybody, with like the big channel boys, so to speak, it would be Nick Page. I love his processing. I love the way he, you know, the kind of photography he goes after, the lightning, and you know, that really appeals to me. I mean, don't get me wrong, you know, I like Adam Gibbs and, you know, Thomas Eaton and Stuart McLennan. I put Stuart in the same category. Stuart's photos are incredible.
Yeah.
But I suppose because Nick Page is kind of so far away, you know, and kind of out of my reach, so to speak.
But I think Nick's another one who would be horrified to be branded as an influencer.
Yeah.
Because he's just a solid photographer, and I'm with you, Darren. I really enjoy his stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, I bought some of Nick's tutorials a couple of years ago, I think, like during lockdown, and he's the only person that I have actually kind of bought tutorials from. So good.
I mean, if he'd come on, we'd find out. But he clearly didn't watch last week. So what I'm going to do this week is put Nick Page. I think I'll do Pubcast season 3 episode 4 Nick Page, and then a few more bits, and then Nick Page at the end, and see if he comes on.
Just put an arrow on the thumbnail.
I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to ask a question. So I feel no.
Go on, ask it. Ask it. You got to ask it now.
Right, okay. I have to ask this with not with a caveat, but I have to say, first of all, Gal, I think the work that Gary does, right, is incredible for all of this.
There's a butt coming.
Gary's honestly, without Gary, well, if Gary didn't do this, this podcast wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, absolutely true.
Okay.
I wouldn't be editing it, that's for certain.
No, I mean, it was Gary's baby. Gary does all the editing, he does all the hard work.
Yeah.
Where's the butt?
There's no but. I'm just going to ask the people that are watching.
Would you rather?
You know what? Would you prefer Gary not to be here and just edit it on our behalf? No, I wasn't going to say that. Okay. The thumbnails. Do you prefer seeing our faces as a thumbnail or the Pubcast logo as a thumbnail? Without upsetting
Too late.
Big G.
Too late.
I'm just asking the question. That was all.
Okay. So is that a question to our audience or to us?
That's a question to our audience and you for.
No.
I've never seen the thumbnail. What does it look like?
Oh shit, mate! It's just a logo instead of our faces.
Oh right. I don't watch, so I've no idea.
You don't watch back? Do you not watch back?
Well, I was here. I know what I said.
Yeah.
I know what you lot said. It doesn't get any more interesting watching it again.
No, that's true. No, I mean, I get your point, Darren. It is it's difficult with thumbnails because I was trying to do something slightly different. But
so how did let's have a look?
No, I just think I don't know. It's just that we was talking about kind of not say clickbait and stuff, but
oh, hello.
But we was looking at. I don't know. I think it's more. What is he doing?
I'm looking at the thumbnail.
Yeah.
Pubcast. Oh right. Okay.
No, while you, as you've raised the subject, I think that going back to how we had it with the faces on was probably a little bit more personable, whatever, or engaging than a logo. But I'm really not fussed either way. I was set on the fence, but if I'm going to have an opinion, I guess it would be.
I can't believe you said that, Jay. How insulting! After all the hard work that he puts in,
I know.
You come up with that.
I quite like the logo, but I think if you have just the same faces every week doing the same thing, then it doesn't differentiate it, does it? Yeah. Unless you have someone who's doing a particularly interesting thing, but it's just going to look the same each week if it's the same faces.
Yeah, but we could all do a different pose.
Oh, what, like Gurn of the Week?
Exactly, Gurn of the Week.
Can't keep the Pubcast selfie.
We could do something different every week, and then we would know then what kind of episode that was.
Right, so this week we'll all moon, shall we?
You need to put the wide angle on.
I really liked it when you did the pointy thing, Gary, with the pointy bits. I thought that worked really, really well.
Yeah, well, the weirdly enough, the pointy one was the best best episode.
Point.
Yeah, it worked. So okay, well, this has descended. Okay, no. Actually, no. In all honesty, let's have a chat about that. If in the comments, if you prefer the logo, let us know. I'm going to do a poll. I'm going to do a poll on the community page. So I'll do a poll on the community page, and then whichever one you decide, we'll put in. We'll do that one instead. So yeah, okay, fair enough. Fair comment, Darren. I mean, never edited an episode, but
dear.
It's only me who spends hours slaving away on a Saturday morning while you lot are all pissing about doing your own thing. Oh, yeah. Anyway, should we move on?
Please.
I think we've got one more topic before we go, and this one, look, I've been saying it for a few times on the podcast about getting people to send in videos, and this week we've had a video in.
Oh,
Yes, a video, and there's several questions on this video which I will be using throughout the podcasts. But this particular one, which I'll play now, is a bonus question on this particular video from Justin Crane, who is he's Evolving Photons, if you don't know him, and actually he's a really funny guy. Actually, not so funny in this, but he's generally a really funny guy. It's because of what he's wearing, to be honest with you. It's not his fault, right? So
what, in this?
yeah, in this, I'm going to share the screen. Okay, everyone
How
got that?
insulting is that?
What?
What do you mean? Is what he's wearing?
Well, you haven't seen what he's wearing yet, Daz. Wait till you see what he's wearing and then make the judgment. Are you ready?
Good evening, gents. You asked for some video questions, so I thought I'd just provide one. So, the question is, if you were the A-team, which members of the A-team would you be?
I just want to say, I reckon he was drunk.
Well, it'd have to be. It's sort of a Darren question, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, see, that's why I'm thinking about it, because I like that. It's right on my wavelength. So I think for me, because I hate flying, I'd have to be B.A. Baracus.
I ain't getting on no plane.
I ain't getting on no plane. I'm not getting on no EasyJet. Yeah. Yeah. Because who was there? There was B.A. Baracus.
Well, there was only 4, really, wasn't there?
Face.
Yeah, Murdoch.
Oh, Murdoch.
And Hannibal.
How could you forget in Hannibal?
Yeah, and then there was the reporter woman.
The woman, yeah, I forget.
So do we have to be one each? I mean, is it like first dibs?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, okay, yeah. So I'll go for BA. So no one else can have that now. So someone's going to end up with a reporter.
The last person to speak is going to be the reporter woman. Well, I'm next, and I would.
I'll make it easy. I'll go last because Darren said, "Oh, you won't remember the A-team, Sam. You're too young." I do remember the A-team. I was born in mid 80s, but I can't remember any of the characters. So you guys, apart from Mr. T, you guys go ahead, and I'll have whoever's left.
We should actually name who we have. Because Dave's got to be
Hannibal.
Hannibal.
It's got to be. It's got to be Hannibal.
Got to be Hannibal.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave's got to be the leader of the A-team, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
so there's Face, who was,
Jamie's got to be Face.
I'm the same as
Jamie's
Sam.
got to be Face.
I'm the same as Sam. I haven't got a
Face.
clue who these people are. I knew their names, but that's it. I've never really watched it. So
Yeah.
you could tell me
Jamie's
who you
gotta
want
be
me to
Face.
be, and yeah, it's fine.
Yeah,
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. So I'm the mad
So-
one.
yeah.
If the
you got
cat
Howling
fits.
Mad Murdoch. Yeah.
Oh dear. I think the thing about the A-team that I used to love the A-team when I was a kid, until I got to a point where I realised that no one ever died.
No.
Ever.
There was a helicopter that blew up
Yeah,
once.
and they all got out of it at the bottom.
And a kid, I kept thinking, oh, at last someone's died, and they all climbed out of the burning wreckage
Yeah,
of
at the
this
bottom.
helicopter.
They made
Yeah.
they went to great pains, didn't they, to show you the people like climbing, and it was always the same. So a jeep would like turn over, land on its top, explode, and then the people get out going, what happened?
Yeah,
And they had, like,
funny, I remember that as well.
Automatic machine guns and like tanks and like
Yeah.
the amount of bullets they used, and no one would die. Crazy.
Yeah, no one would reload either.
No. And it'd be like, oh, we're locked in a barnyard with like a potato sorting machine, and within 20 hours they've built a nuclear warhead. So I think we've come to the end this week. We've literally exhausted all avenues of conversation. Thank you very much for watching.
I could go for hours.
Yeah.
Because I missed last week.
We'll
This
talk
is
about that after the show, Dan. So after the... You can't talk about that now. They don't want to hear about your sexual exploits. So I think we've come to the end of the show.
We said it. We said last week.
you've
We
lost it.
missed Daz, didn't we? Last week we did say, and this is the reason why. You know?
We actually, when we finished, we actually did say that it's not the same without you, mate.
Oh, did you
we
really?
did,
Did it go?
genuinely.
Did it go really smooth last week?
No, it just
Is that what it
Didn't
was?
have the
It's got
comedy
that-
moments that
Yeah,
you bring.
there's that little extra element of comedy that without you, mate.
Do I make you all feel better?
You do,
because
you
I set
do.
the bar so low.
do.
Is that what it is?
You do, and also we just went through it like that. Not a single wee break. So it was, yeah.
I can't help it. Can't help it. I've got a very small bladder, and I drink. Look at how big them cans are. Look,
Yeah,
the size of my head.
That's true. Yeah.
Sorry, go on. I'm rambling.
Anyway, thank you ever so much for watching this week. We hope you've enjoyed it. Keep the comments coming in. Keep your photos coming in. Any videos you want to put in, etc., etc. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed the new thumbnail. See you later. Bye bye.
See you guys. Bye bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.